let's start. Hey, everyone, and welcome to We Should Talk About This, the show where we dive into unfiltered conversations about business, work, and life. I'm your host, Amy Setton, and I'm here with my brilliant co-host, Nilofer.
Ta-da! Hi, everyone. We started this podcast because honestly, these are the conversations we were already having late at night, over coffee, voice notes, and texts about everything from navigating careers to figuring out how to actually live a smarter, better life while realizing that the issues that we were all facing are the same across the world, whether you live in India, UAE, or the US.
Exactly. This is a space for real talk. No fluff, no pretending that we have it all figured out. Just two women working through the kinds of questions so many of us face. Should you go to business school? How do you get a raise? Is it ever a good idea to go into business with friends or family?
Or the big ones. How do you build generational wealth? Should you change your name after marriage? And what does success even look like when you're trying to carve your own path, not follow someone else's? So grab your coffee, your wine, your spreadsheet, whatever you need, and let's get into it.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to our brand new podcast. We should talk about this. I'm Amy Setton, and I'm here with my best friend and brilliant co-host, Nilofer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nilofer. I can't believe that we are finally doing this. I'm so excited to be here with you, Amy, and to explore some amazing, real, and fun conversations together.
Me too. We're calling this our intro podcast because we're going to let our new listeners learn about our story, our backgrounds, and do a little discussion of like why we are doing this podcast.
Yeah, we want this to be the kind of podcast that feels like chatting with your smartest, funniest friends with coffee or wine, especially about the topics that you're secretly obsessing over. Nothing is off limits. Nothing is sugar coated.
To start out, let me ask you, Nilofer, about your story. Obviously, I know all about you, but we should dive into what your background is so that our listeners can learn about you.
Okay, I'll try to wrap it up soon. I'll try to do like a quick version of it because I can go into a whole rambling mode.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in Delhi, and I've always been obsessed with fashion, luxury, and my biggest obsession is traveling. So after I did my undergrad, I decided to move to Chicago 10 years ago to pursue that, to live in another part of the world. And that's where I met Amy, and our lives kind of became intertwined from there. At the time, I was working at Towers Watson, which is a human capital firm. Right off the bat, I knew that I wanted to explore more of the world, both geographically and professionally, in terms of the industries and functions. So I packed my bags and moved to London. I was not a big fan of consulting since I never knew if the clients were really following our advice. And I really wanted to focus on impact and have that direct touch point with customers, which maybe in retrospect was just a little bit too demanding. I didn't realize that when I signed up for it. So I went to business school to figure out what I wanted to do next and eventually landed a job at Amazon in Dubai.
Wow. It's been such a wild journey for you. You've lived in so many countries, and I love your story so much because you really focused on exploring different things that you wanted to do and also trying new things. And I really like that about you.
Thank you. But I do want to be very real here. And I think it would be the same with you or even with our partners. I think when you look at the past 10 years and just the way that I've described it in 2 minutes, it seems like, oh, wow, everything was just so perfect and it flowed from one thing to the next. But in the past 10 years, I feel like there's a cycle that comes in after like a year, 2 years, where you sort of question yourself all over again. And you're like, am I doing this right? Is this the right thing? And I think you have been part of so many of those conversations and decisions. And so, in the spirit of keeping it real, The last decision that I made, which was last year of leaving Amazon to build something of my own, was probably the most terrifying. I think being in your early 30s and deciding to leave like a very stable corporate job is heard of, but not the most encouraged way to lead your career. It took me a long time to make that decision. And honestly, every single time I questioned myself, something happened at work that reinforced my belief that it was time to leave that place. I'm still figuring it out as I go. But I think with you, with myself, with a bunch of friends around, I started seeing more people talk about that in between phase of just figuring things out or taking a sabbatical or a leave of absence. And I realized it's okay to do that. It's not a rat race. We've established enough in terms of our credentials that it's okay to take a break to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to that, and we've had tons of conversations about our dreams and what we see for the future from our early 20s, mid-20s to 30s, and it's shifted so much. And that's why we wanted to start this podcast because we have been struggling to figure out what fits for us. And we talk to our friends and our family, and they're feeling the same. We know we're not experts, we don't have all the answers, but we want to share these conversations with our listeners because we don't have it figured out, but we're here to talk to you about it.
If we had it figured out, we probably would not be talking about it.
We'll be on a beach somewhere, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's summer. Let's go to Europe. But so tell us a little bit about you, Amy. I obviously have been part of the journey, but start from where I did not know you and tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So I grew up in New York and I was a classic or what you would call like a classic science nerd. I was always in the kitchen or in the lab, tinkering, testing, and experimenting. And I studied biochemistry in undergrad, fully thinking that I was going to find some cure to cancer or something. But obviously, things don't always go as planned. And once I started in college, I made a big shift. And I decided that I wanted to go into the business side of healthcare. And I got my master's in management at Kellogg with Unilofer so that I could make that shift. And then I eventually landed my first job in finance at Allstate Insurance. And it was like a crash course in corporate structure. And it was a really great experience, but it also made me feel like a tiny cog in a big wheel. And so I was just trying to figure things out and I kept pivoting. I tried different things from tech consulting to sales. And I also was working at large companies, mid-size and small companies. I even did business school as well in between all of that. But no matter what, I always thought something was missing. And I knew I needed to take a pause and leave my job, which I did before you did in the lower to figure it all out.
Yeah, and we talked about it so much. I think a big part of your journey for me is how you've always had a creative side to yourself. And I'm so glad that you did all that tinkering in kitchen because I absolutely love your baking. So
Yeah.
it's you who has motivated me to pick books again. It's you who has not motivated me to bake, but at least work out so that I can eat all the good stuff that you would make from time to time. And that's the thing. I think when you have these demanding corporate jobs, you have to do something to keep you sane and keep you motivated. So I'm so glad that you continue to do one thing or the other while you were figuring it out in the corporate world.
Yeah. I think like I always felt like there was something missing or I needed to do something else. And corporate 9 to 5 grind was just not fitting those needs. I was always trying, like, oh, let me do a baking blog or could I sell something on Etsy? Can I do something different? Because it just wasn't fitting. So now exploring a different path has been such a great experience. I think bringing that to our listeners and showing that you don't have to go down the traditional path. You can try something different. You could take that risk. And I think that was what was really scary for me. Was like I thought that if I left my job, then I was like leaving it all behind and it was going to be impossible to go back or I was going to be judged for that. But in reality, a lot of people try different things and it's really helpful to take the time to explore what fits.
Yeah,
What about
100%.
for you? What was scary or like I know taking this big jump for you was a little intimidating.
Yeah, I think honestly for me, the biggest part of it was definitely similar to you, like leaving a stable job that pays well. Who in their right minds does that? Except maybe you and I. In that moment, it truly felt it was like us two who are doing this because all of our friends at the time, I don't know if a lot's changed now, were sort of still pursuing the corporate path. And so for me, my biggest fear was A, leaving that stability behind. And then B, I think it was this fear of, am I not ambitious enough? And that sort of translating into, will I be sleeping until 10 a.m.? Will I, shower at 1 p.m.? How do I manage that routine while I figure out what I want to do? And I think that was the biggest thing, the sort of figuring out my routine and making sure that I manage my mental well being.
Yeah, I really like those 2 points. I think leaving the financial stability was really scary, and it took a lot of time to feel comfortable with that, and then also, like, what you were describing of not having a schedule where you have meetings with your boss or your team. Would I be able to keep some kind of routine, and not just become like a couch potato?
The word I was like, what is that word? I was like, oh, that's the word.
Yeah, right? It did take time to figure out a good balance.
Definitely. And before we get into that new chapter in our lives that we do want to cover, let's talk about how we first met. I think we met exactly 10 years ago. No,
Oh my
2 more months.
god.
And then 10 years ago. Yeah, July 2025, right? No, July 2015.
But 2015.
Yeah. It's like our 10-year anniversary.
Oh my god, we should be doing something.
I don't even remember our first encounter. I feel like when someone asks me, how do you know Amy? I was like, I don't know. I've always known her. I just don't have that one particular moment that sits with me where I was like, oh, that was when we became friends. I think we just clicked from the get go. I don't know if you remember when we first met and if you have any impressions.
Well, I remember first seeing you and I was intimidated by you because you're all dressed up, with the outfit and the earrings and everything. And I was like, who is this person? How could I become friends with her? And for me, the first like click moment was, or that's really in my mind, was like when we would sit at that, I don't know, it was like a fast food Indian
Yeah.
place like across the street from where you were staying in Chicago. And I feel like we were just like bonding over everything, like food, family, values. And I don't know what it was. It was like, if you can crush on like a best friend or a soulmate, like that's what I feel like our
Yeah.
experience. Like I know people are like, oh, like that moment when you find the first love of your life. Well, for me, like both of us, it's like we found our friendship
Yeah.
soulmate.
I agree. And I think apart from another friend, you're probably my oldest friend.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it's like, and it's not even a lot of people are like, how do you maintain this friendship? Like, how do two people from very different cultures, very different backgrounds, living in two different parts of the world, we lived together in the same city for what, 2.5 years? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do those 2.5 years sort of sustain a 10-year long friendship? And I don't know. I feel like you've just been one of those people that makes the effort, whether that is coming to see me in Dubai, whether that's coming to see me in London, India, you name it, and you've been there. And I love it.
I mean, you gotta give yourself credit too. I think it's a mutual experience.
100%. I would definitely send you long audio notes, not expecting a
What do
response.
you when we first started chatting, like, abroad in different countries, the endless audio notes you would send me, and I don't no one would ever do that, and I don't know how to respond. So
Yeah.
it'd be like, just like a short response or maybe even no response.
Yeah. And you would type me and you was like, I don't know, I feel weird about audio notes. I don't like listening to my own voice.
Yeah.
And look at us today doing a podcast.
So we've had so many great memories together, and we've both leveraged our own experiences to navigate corporate landscape, navigate life, and help each other out.
Yeah, definitely a fun experience. Sometimes we felt like each other's agony aunts. And I think one of those moments was last year.
Yeah.
It was honestly, actually, that is also a 1 year anniversary, maybe like early May. We were in
Yeah.
Vienna in May, and then you traveled afterwards in Europe. But it was exactly a year ago when we were sitting in Vienna talking about corporate burnout. You had left your job and you kept telling me that I could do it too. You said,
I was laughing because I feel like you were like sitting on the floor at like midnight in the hotel room, like having a battle with your boss, and I'm in bed and I'm like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this to yourself right now? Like you're on vacation and you're on the floor trying to like make sure everything's going right at work."
and it was such a stupid thing. And I think one thing that you said to me was like my wake up call. And it may not be verbatim, but it was similar, right? It was like, I have never worked like this since my mid 20s. Like, this is insane. You need to have boundaries. And I think that was my wake up call. That was a conversation that is still a conversation that is always in my mind. I think I'm much more happier for it.
Yeah, there was a moment where I was like, maybe I'm pushing this too much. And honestly, I was shocked that after the trip, when you went home and then you were like, okay, I'm putting a plan in place. I'm going to leave my job. I was like, oh my God, she's going to do it. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I think we talked about it where you were like, listen, don't over index on what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. I took time. I came back home and I think I was like, no, this is it. And then you came to Dubai, which was amazing in December, and we hatched a new plan.
It was crazy. It was like, you were like, okay, I'm leaving and I have an idea and I want to run with it. And I was like, all right, I'm coming to Dubai. I think I booked my flights like 2 weeks.
Maybe even less. I think I booked it within a week. You truly only live once. And I think you coming to the Dubai in December was like that moment that again pulled me out of something. We've always known we love each other. We are the closest friends. But I think every single conversation that we had in Dubai, and obviously that we've had over the past few years, made me realize I want to see if we can continue this friendship, which is why we're here with this podcast. You in the morning and me at night, figuring it all out across multiple different time zones. And it was also the beginning of Bubs, a bamboo sleepwear brand, and us working together. I never thought our friendship of 10 years will lead us to this moment. It has been so fun to finally get to work together on not just Bubs, but also on this podcast. This podcast is not just for entrepreneurs or founders or people who are unhappy with corporate world. It's for anyone navigating work, life, identity, and big decisions.
That's right. We're going to talk about it all. So stay tuned for our next episode. We should talk about this.
Thank you for listening.